Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of the Bookum Nook Show. My name is Kyle Colley, and this is a special episode of Founders Talk Podcast, a podcast for founders to tell their stories, ideas, and visions of the future. This episode is brought to you by Bookum, the book community's new and best way to host dynamic online book clubs. Download the app and start your book club today at www.bookumapp.com. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. My guest today is the passionate Emily Crookston. Emily is the owner and decider of all things at the Pocket PhD. Also, she is also known as a ghostwriter for Rebels, Renegades, and Mavericks. She's not a sugarcoater, and she is phenomenal at what she does. Emily, welcome to the Founders Talk podcast.
Hey, Kyle. Thanks. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And it's really our pleasure because I do want to get into a lot of the ghostwriting, but I kind of wanted to start with like Renegades, Rebels, and Mavericks. Like, who are some of those that Rebels and Mavericks that have inspired you throughout time and through your life?
That's a great question. So I would say probably the biggest rebel who's inspired me is my dad. He just loves to be kind of countercultural. He taught me from a young age to be really an independent thinker. And I really appreciate that about him. I used to be a philosophy professor. That's where the Pocket PhD comes from. And I always think, my philosophical training started when I was a wee child because my dad is one of the best critical thinkers I've ever known. So he's certainly inspired me to, ask questions rather than just accepting, this is the status quo, this is how we've always done things. That's never been, part of my psyche, and I'm grateful for that because as a business owner, as you know, you have to be able to stand in the face of the status quo a lot of the time and go against the grain in
No,
ways
I
that
love
are
that answer.
important.
Yeah, I love that answer because dads are just they're the best. So I really do
Yeah.
appreciate you shouting that out.
Thanks.
Outside of like family figures, like who are some like authors that you've like kind of
Yeah.
worked with or like are proud to take on kind of that brand of like being a renegade and a rebel that you like and have worked
Yeah.
with?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think all of my clients in some way, shape, or form fit that model. I worked last year with a surgeon who's thinking about leaving surgery, and one of the reasons for that is because she feels like her medical training really disconnected her from her body and from other people and from the world. And so we explored that together in her book. So, a lot of my clients, I wrote a book as well with somebody who bootstrapped his company. And, the status quo he's standing against is there are these VCs out there, and people who have startups believe that that's the path to having a successful startup is getting funding. And he said, no, you can bootstrap your company. He sold his company for $200 million to Oracle. So, like those are the kinds of folks that I love to work with, and they inspire me every day. Um, I also love reading books by, rebels I don't know. Like we talked earlier about the innovation stack and what's his name? McKelvey.
Yeah,
What's his first name?
McKelvey. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Jim.
Jim McKelvey. Yeah, yeah. And he's another one who, he started Square, the payment processing plan, and he had to stand up against all the credit card companies. There was a point in the book he recounts about how Amazon tried to squash his business, and so he took on Amazon and won. Like those kinds of stories are just incredible, and you have to be a rebel to fly in the face of people like that and big fish like that.
Yeah, it's really a part of the DNA of a founder, like that grit and that determination. That's why I'm really excited to talk with you and kind of also think about it from like when you're doing writing, like how do you kind of help people not overthink when it comes to writing books, or like what's your tip for making sure you don't overthink when you're writing with a lot of these different personalities?
Yeah, yeah, it's really key, because I am definitely a chronic overthinker myself as a philosopher, you might imagine. And when I was writing philosophy papers, man, I was just stuck in my head and I was overwriting and overthinking all the time. And so I've really had to work to kind of break out of that mold since I've started writing for my business. And I have a book coming out in October. It's going to be released October 1st, and it's called Unwritten, The Thought Leader's Guide to Not Overthinking Your Business Book. So my biggest tip around not overthinking is, the writing, just remember that a book is a snapshot of your brain. You're writing a book for your business. It's only valuable to you when it's out in the world. So don't spend 3 years, 5 years working on your book, chipping away at it. Take some time, say, okay, for the next 6 months, I'm going to focus on the book and get it done. Hit your word count goal every week. That's one of my biggest tips. Figure out how fast you can write, how well you write, do some timed writing for yourself, and then set some goals that are realistic and hit those word count goals. That's the fastest way to get to your draft.
Very well said, and I agree with you. And I was listening to one of your podcasts. You talk about like that process of like basically you as soon as you get it, you say you have a start date, even if it's a blog. You're like I have a start date and an end date.
Yeah.
It's gonna be 16 weeks. It's gonna take this amount of time, and you stick to it. You say you have 1,000 word day. It's like I really appreciate how you kind of meticulously go through all those steps.
Yeah, exactly. A book, good length for a business book is 40,000 words. So if you say, okay, I'm going to start this day and I want it to be done this day, do the math, take the number of words you need and divide by the number of days you have to write it, and that's your word count goal. It's a pretty simple formula, but yeah, it's the thing that works. I don't think there's a ton of writing advice that I have to give. That's the thing that helps me get my books done for my clients. That's the thing that helps me get my writing done for my business. So.
Random, but Kobe Bryant also does that or did that too. Like he talked about how he said when he came into the league, people were years ahead of him in some of their talent pools. And he basically said, if I wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning and I do a morning workout, then I do another hooping session, then I do another, in a couple years, I'm gonna lap everybody that's ever been in front of me. And that's kind of the same thing what you're talking about with writing, is that approach.
Yeah, exactly. I remember hearing, do you know Mike Birbiglia? He's a comedian. He has a podcast. But anyway, I was just speaking of podcasts, I was just listening to an episode with him, and he said he learned this from Pete Sampras, the tennis player. Like, you hit 90 serves first thing in the morning, and every day you hit 90 serves, and like that's you put in the reps, like people say. And it's the same with anything any big project in your business that you're trying to get done.
Yeah, speaking of big projects, I want to talk about the Pocket PhD. Like, can you talk a little bit about the origins and what kind of sparked the idea?
Yeah, totally. So I used to be a philosophy professor, like I said, and when I was ready to leave academia, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I thought about what I liked before I liked philosophy. What was it that I thought I wanted to do before I wanted to be a professor? And the answer was, well, I thought marketing was cool when I was a kid. So a friend of a friend was looking for marketing help, and I ended up ghost blogging. We didn't call it that. She called it content marketing. But that's what it was. I was writing blogs for her and her clients. She has a web development company, so she had clients who also needed blogs. This was 2015, and I think business blogging was kind of coming into its heyday. So I said, well, at some point she said, you could start a business doing this. And then I said, okay, that's what I'll do. But then I realized, if I want to make a living blogging, I have to write like 10 blogs a week. Seemed like a lot, at the time, and what I was getting paid. And so, I said, I think I can write longer things. And so I started writing books. I started finding my way to my first book ghostwriting clients. But that's how it started. I decided to leave academia, and I didn't want a 9-to-5 job. So I thought starting a business was the best option for me.
Yeah, and talk to us about like acquiring some of those early clients, specifically when it kind of comes to like the stigma of ghostwriting. I know some people don't like to say they had a ghostwriter and all that. So can you talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I extend full confidentiality to all of my clients. So I can't put testimonials on my website from my book ghostwriting clients, for example. And yeah, there is this stigma. I run into people all the time who tell me that they had a terrible experience with a ghostwriter, that someone took their money and never delivered on the book, or the book wasn't good. But, I decided really early on that I wanted my process to be really collaborative. So I work really closely with my clients. I can't imagine writing a book that doesn't feel like yours. I can't imagine having someone else write a book for me that doesn't feel like me, like I just can't, that doesn't make sense. So yeah, we meet weekly, we talk through different pieces. I write, they edit. It's a really nice mind meld when it happens well. And for some of my early clients, I wrote a memoir really early on. I don't really write memoirs these days. They're business books designed to help you grow your business. That's what I focus on. But I wrote a memoir with a professional dancer in Myrtle Beach, and she was talking about her eating disorders and things like that. And basically, she handed me her diary, and then I wrote the book from that. But it was so that was an interesting project, but really unusual from kind of the norm and the things that I've sort of found my way into since then. I wrote books with money coaches, parenting coaches, tons of business owners, entrepreneurs. Yeah.
How do you brand yourself as a ghostwriter when again a lot of that is behind the scenes and there's that trustworthy piece you're talking about. How do you position yourself where it's like I'm the right person for you, but I might be behind the scenes. Even though I have looked at your LinkedIn, you do that. So just interested in.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. It isn't very, it's not easy. You're right. That trust factor can be a little hard. People ask for writing samples and things sometimes, and I can't really share writing samples. I mean, they can look at my blog, but also I think every book is so different that a writing sample isn't very helpful. If you don't believe I could write, I don't know how to help you. Like that I can write. So what are you getting out of looking at a writing sample? But yeah, I just, I get on those sales calls and there has to be a really nice personality fit. That has to make a lot of sense to both of us because it's also a big investment, ghostwriting, and it's a lot of trust to place in a person before you really see any results at all.
Right.
And so, yeah, but I say that I can write a book in 4 months, and I do that with a lot of people, 16 weeks. But I also am sensitive, like if the book in 16 weeks isn't where we want it to be, I keep working. Like it's not like I'm like, oh, sorry, too late, we're done. We get it right. And I have worked with people where we scrap the whole first draft and it's hard. But that's I think an important thing for people to understand. I'm gonna work hard to make sure that it fits your voice and feels like you and all of that. Where I can run into trouble is if a person isn't really clear on what they want their book to be. So I require people to come to me with an outline. And we can't stray too far from that because now all of a sudden we're writing a different book than we agreed to. But, as long as people are willing to be collaborative and talk with me and give me feedback, it's a really good process and it works.
Yeah, it's that two-way street, kind of like that collaborative process you talk about. Talk to me a little bit about the difference. You say you talk about having a idea partner as well. Can you
Yeah.
explain that worldview a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, I do see myself as an idea partner rather as much as a ghostwriter. I mean, I am doing the bulk of the writing. I'm kind of helping you with the discipline of writing, I would say, but it's all your ideas. Like I think that's a misconception people have about ghostwriters sometimes that I'm going to come with all my ideas and share, but I'm not an expert in your field. You're the expert. I don't know anything about your area of expertise. So I'm just here to listen to you and help you become the kind of the mouthpiece for you in a way. And I have all of my clients are really willing to talk to prospects about how the process works. And so that's another kind of marketing piece that I use. I share their information with individuals and they're okay with that. And so that can help as well. Like, how does this process really work? What's it like on the inside? Well, those are all good questions for people
Oh
to
yeah,
ask.
I'm sure you get 1,000 questions all the
Oh
time.
yes, lots of questions.
So when you talk about like that aligning piece with like their business strategy, I know that can be a tough too. Like, how do you kind of help people like get past that? Like, how do you position it so that it becomes a part of their brand and extension of them when they go out and put this book into the world?
Yeah, that's something I've been thinking a lot about lately, because I think people think of their book kind of compartmentalized from their business. In a lot of cases, it's like, oh, that's a thing I'll do in a couple of years, and they don't. But I want to say, look, you can grow your business at the same time as you're writing your book. So I preach that you should put your ideas out there when they're half baked. As soon as you think you're writing a book, say you're writing a book, tell people, and then start putting those ideas out into the world. And the reason for that is you'll start to feel ownership over that idea and it'll start to feel real. You'll feel more motivated to write it. And then by the time it's ready, by the time it's out in the world, you've got this primed audience who's ready to buy from you. A lot of people think about the marketing of a book as happening 3 months before book launch and 3 months after book launch. But I want people to start thinking of the marketing and the promotion from day one. As soon as you have the idea, like you're marketing that book and you're marketing your business at the same time, because your book is the core of your business. The book is about the core of your business.
Yeah, when a book is done right too, you become like exactly what you kind of talk about, that thought leader perspective,
Yeah.
because there's so many people that I would have never known about, like going through business, that when I read their book, now I go and follow them. And now every time I'm in this, if I'm trying to find networking effects or something like that, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to this person. So they really, those books really do
Mhm.
crazy, like for helping them put their brand out there in different ways than even social posting or interviews even do sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you have to be a thought leader, you need to be creating consistent content. And that's a big part of it. And so if you're already creating all of this content, now if you can just get it rowing in the same direction, then those big ideas start popping out at you. You're like, oh, that's what I'm saying. That's the core of my business. And then it just becomes natural to write the book or even write the keynote speech or the keynote address, some kind of big idea. I'm always encouraging people to think about a strategy, a holistic strategy around all of your content rather than, okay, now I'm branding my business. Okay, now I'm writing my book. They're really one and the same. Your book is marketing your business. It's not the other way around. You do have to market your book, but that's doing double duty because as you market your book, you're marketing your business.
I imagine it can be kind of hard to bring like a half-baked idea or unfinished idea to someone. And then especially when you're kind of also being vulnerable, how do you kind of work with the client to make sure they feel comfortable during that process, even if they're still formulating the idea?
Yeah, that can be a big challenge, and especially because it's scary to share half-baked ideas. You don't often have a lot of confidence around those ideas. You're like, I don't know, I'm testing it out. So there is that vulnerability piece for sure. I guess, I always tell my clients my whole job is to make you look good. I love to be a thought partner. I love it when people bring me half-baked ideas and I can take that idea and share and reflect back to you what I'm hearing, and you can hear it and say, yeah, that's not what I meant. I had a nice meeting with a developmental editing. I also do developmental editing, and a developmental editing client today. And it was just this, we got to this point. I've been working with her for about 3 weeks, and we just got to this really nice point where we're like, that's the main argument of this book. And we got there through conversation. And that's the thing that I think people don't always understand. We think of writing as this really solo process. But it can be very collaborative, and it's so fun when it's collaborative because now you have somebody who's going to take the reins and say, okay, we're going to get this book done. It can be such a relief for folks who are like in her place where she's like, she has this draft, she hasn't looked at it in 4 years. She's ready to get it out there. And like, it's a really nice place to be because I can just read it and I can digest it, and then, we can together figure out the best way forward.
Yeah, what qualities kind of make you like turn down an author? I know there's probably been times where people have come to you with a lot of money, but you're like, I still don't know if this is the right project to do. How do you kind of decipher that?
Yeah, the idea has to be clear to me as a book idea, as a worthy book idea to be out in the world. So yeah, I've had people come to me and either the idea is just really so fuzzy, not even half baked, like still batter or something. It's just too fuzzy. Like they can't really outline it. The outline isn't clear to me. Those are the kind of cases where I would say, okay, we got to go back to the drawing board, or and I will sometimes meet with people before they're really ready to work with me, kind of as a ramp up, especially if you're still kind of in the writing process and you're interested in developmental editing. I'll meet with you and sort of talk strategy. I don't mind doing that. But I've definitely turned down projects that I just thought were I didn't agree with the premise. Something about it felt a little bit, I don't know, sleazy, a little bit. I don't know, like the worst kind of self-help types of books, that kind of a thing. If it doesn't jive with my values, then I'm most likely to turn it down. And if I feel like a personality clash, that can also be a problem because I really do have to capture or get into your head when I'm writing for you. And if I don't think I can do that, then it's not a good project for me. I've also turned down books that are like legacy books. Like there's a lot of people who want to write books about their Vietnam experience to leave for
Okay.
their, the story for their grandkids and things like that. And I do business books. That's what's primarily on my plate.
And when we talk about collaboration, how does like do ghostwriters also have ghostwriter like teams? Like, do you also how do you kind of think about that? Or is it always, I guess the question is like, how do you kind of clone yourself if you got like all these different projects that you might want to take on? I really don't want to say no to this because it is a great opportunity. I'm just doing something else.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I do have a couple of writers who work with me. They do the smaller things. So for the last couple of years, we've been writing LinkedIn content for people. We write articles, all of these little pieces that you need to build your platform, your thought leadership platform before you're ready to write the book or while you're writing the book. And so I kind of let them do those smaller projects, and I work on the big book projects and the editing projects. But as I'm thinking about scaling, and now especially as I've decided I'm going to go after only going after people who want to write business books. I have been thinking, by myself, I can only write 2 or 3 books a year because it's a 4-month process. You can do the math on that. So I have been thinking about how I might bring in other ghostwriters, assuming I could start getting like more than 2 or 3 projects a year, coming my way, which would be an amazing problem to have. And I think, I'd have to play it by ear. I don't know that I could train someone to do it exactly the way I do. I don't know that I would want to do that. It might be that I bring on ghostwriters as contractors and they have their own process. And I just kind of broker out what clients go best with, which writers, that kind of thing, like personality matching, that kind of thing. I don't know. I'll have to cross that bridge when I come to it.
Yeah, I just think about even like someone like a James Patterson or like a Tom
Yeah.
Clancy, where they're pumping out so many books at a certain
Oh
moment.
yeah.
And I know it's like different. You're doing more nonfiction writing, but
Yeah.
the way they pump them out, they have like ghostwriters with
Oh yeah. They probably have
ghostwriters. Yeah.
teams of writers and researchers. Yeah, and there are plenty of ghostwriting agencies out there. There's Gotham Ghostwriters in New York. There's big agencies that hire tons of ghostwriters and have a lot of people in-house who do that kind of work. I don't expect to ever be a ghostwriting agency, a
Yeah.
big agency like that. But I could certainly see a world where there are more projects than I can handle. I've always thought the dream would be to have a wait list. But I think that's pretty hard because once you're ready to write your book, you don't want to wait. Like that's why you're hiring a ghostwriter so you can get it done faster.
Yeah. The other thing I've noticed a lot is like even like VCs, like venture capitalists will have ghostwriters do their Twitters and all that. So I think
Oh yeah.
there's so much there as well.
Oh yeah, it's true. Everyone needs content. Everyone's a content creator these days, and so everybody needs ghostwriters in some capacity, it
Yeah.
seems.
When it comes to like do you do like celebrity I should say celebrity business books or anything like that? Because I know there's like the Damon Johns of the world and some other people that have those type of books as well.
Yeah, I mean, love to get to that level. That's
Okay.
a next level for sure. I think sometimes people say they're surprised because they think only celebrities and politicians use ghostwriters. They didn't realize that, a lot of books are ghost written. The stats on that are not very good because it's confidential. But there are people who will say in the range of way more than 50% of business books have
Yeah.
ghostwriters. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that. I think so. I don't know if it's true, but someone said it could be up to like 70% of those
Yes,
best-selling business books are
that's what I've heard.
ghostwritten. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. Like what other like kind of like misconceptions or things that have you had dealing with kind of building people's book club? I mean, ghostwriting spaces.
Other misconceptions. Yeah, that's a big one that's only celebrities and politicians use ghostwriters. That your ghostwriter will take your idea, go away for 6 months, and then hand you a book. I don't think that it works that way in most cases. I'm sure there are some ghostwriters who work that way. I think another maybe misconception that I've started hearing is that you don't need a ghostwriter, you can use AI to write your book. lots of people are playing around with using AI to write books. There's even like companies coming out specifically with AI to write your book. I've looked at a couple of those, and I know somebody who used AI as a thought partner to write his own book. And it's an interesting way to go. I mean, I think there are ways to use AI. You know, the dream of using AI is that, you know, you don't have to do any work, right? Like you just put your outline into a robot and have it spit out a book. And I am sure the robots will do that for you. Whether it's a book you want to put your name on is another question. I don't have a lot of luck when I try to use AI for any of the writing I've done. So I'm pretty skeptical about it being good enough to write a book for you. And then there's, of course, like the fact checking. If you have any facts or statistics in your book, you really just can't trust AI for all that to be accurate. You'd have to do all the fact checking on all that stuff, at the very least, you know, assuming it's giving you, you know, decent writing. So yeah, I don't think AI is replacing ghostwriters anytime soon, probably not in my lifetime. And, so I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, that's, I think, another big misconception that people have. Like even with using a human ghostwriter, there's a misconception that you won't have to do any work. You know, that will take care of everything. But again, if you want this book to be yours and to really, you know, grow and sell your business, then you need to be involved. That's just the bottom line.
No, I agree with you. And I also think it's just like, because AI seems like it's like a good sparring partner, but it's not really a good master. So like you kind of playing at the limbs of just kind of what gets put out, right? Versus like
Exactly.
work with someone that's a ghostwriter, they're going to understand all the details of like the human existence and how'd you feel in this moment? All those questions you really need, like when it comes to journalism, on the person that you're working with. So then when you pull out those stories, they come from that unique perspective that they have.
Right. And you're writing a book as a thought leader, you're sharing your unique point of view. The robot doesn't know your point of view. Even if it's trained on your work, it's still, you know, just aggregating what it's finding out there, you know. And if it is creative in some way, it's probably not in the best ways, you know. So yeah, I think be very careful about that, using AI to write books. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to kind of shift to you as a reader. Like, what have you been? What's the last book you read? What are you reading now? And like, what do you plan to read in the future?
Yeah, this is great. Let's see. So yeah, we already mentioned McKelvey's book, The Innovation Stack. It's really good for business owners because it really tells you like what makes a company go viral, basically. It's a really, really great read. It came out several years ago now. It's getting a little bit older. I am currently reading a fiction book, which is called A Talent for Murder. It's called A Talent for Murder. It's by Peter Swanson. It's a really fun kind of thriller. I like to read fiction occasionally, especially audiobook wise. I don't do well audiobook with nonfiction books. I like to get those on hard copy so I can flip pages and underline things. In terms of business books, I am reading a book called The Quantum Woman, which is all about women's empowerment. That book is by Shamina Taylor, who is a wealth coach that I recently met. It's really good, a really interesting read, fast read. It was a bestseller, #1 bestseller on Amazon. That one's really great. I'm also reading a memoir of Madonna. My book is coming out in October, and the audiobook reader also read this book, this biography of Madonna. So I've been listening to it to kind of get a feel for her voice and what my book is going to sound like when she does the audiobook.
Now, see, that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get into a little bit of rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So what's a book that has like tremendously impacted your life?
Ooh, there's so many. Um, I would say Plato's Apology had a huge impact on my life. It's one of the earliest philosophy books that I read.
Okay. What is a book that not enough people are talking about, but you're like, you all need to read this one?
Ooh, gosh, that's a tough question. So there's a series of books that I love. Ooh, this is a good one. Allow Me to Retort by Elie Mystal. It's all about the Constitution and how different politicians have used the Constitution to their advantage. And my husband gave me this book, and I just really loved it, but I haven't heard a lot of people talking about it. So yeah, allow me to retort. It's a good one.
Perfect. And we'll keep it simple, but like if you could write do a ghostwriting, write a ghost book for somebody that has passed on, who would you want to work with?
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's a great question. Um, Maybe Lucille Ball. That would be a
Okay.
really fun person to write with. Yeah, somebody in Hollywood, a TV star from the past. Yeah,
Very cool.
yeah, yeah.
All right, and the way we like to end this podcast is what should be in a writer's toolkit and what should be in a founder's toolkit.
Yeah, okay. In a writer's toolkit, I would say a really good and concise books about how to write that are really specific to writing business books in particular. In a business owner's toolkit, I would say really good business books, same kind of answer. And I always look for books that my friends recommend, books that are floating around in social. If I've seen it like a couple times pass through my radar, then it's a book that I think is worth reading. Yeah, so I think you can learn a lot from reading books and or even blogs and articles and things. Like I think always be learning. That's kind of my big advice for business owners and people who want to write, because the more you read, the easier it is to write. It's the same kind of piece of your brain that gets prompted
Right.
by those things.
It's just, yeah, it's like what you said earlier. It's like that when you read, you kind of clear up the thinking, and then writing helps you. I mean, read helps clear up your writing, and writing helps clear up your thinking. So I'm right.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Well,
they go hand in hand.
yeah, go ahead. I would say thank you so much, Emily. Please let us know where we can support or what's coming up in your world. That anything that we should our way to find you on the internet.
Yeah, sure. So you can find me on my website at thepocketphd.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Emily Crookston. Should be easy to find me there. I am hosting a fall writing retreat, which is happening here in North Carolina. So if you're local and you're interested in doing a content writing retreat, you don't have to be writing a book to join us. That's happening at the end of October, October 25th through the 27th. So I'd be happy to share info about that. And you can find everything on my website.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll make sure to put that all in the caption below. Thank you
Awesome.
so much, Emily, and it was a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle.